what we're going to cover today is why so many women fake it. Thank you so much for joining us today on Second Act TV. Today, I am so happy to welcome back one of my favorite guests, Tiffany. You haven't been here in a bit. Tiffany Yelverton, the founder of Entice Me. Thank you so much for being here again.
Thank you. It's been so long. I am so great to see you again.
Yeah, well, it's high time that we touch this on this topic again. I've gotten lots of interesting comments on our channel that really mandate that we start talking about this again. Entice Me, by the way, is a company that is focused on closing the pleasure gap. And all this will become clear in just a minute, because what we're going to cover today is why so many women fake it. That the statistics behind that, there's an article and I'll share that so you can read about it on your own, are staggering. And Tiffany is she's an expert on learning not to fake it, and that's what I want to talk about today. Tiffany, tell me, what are the statistics? You agree with this, that 80% of women have admitted to faking it?
I think it could even be higher than that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's pretty accurate, being that 80% of women don't orgasm from penetration.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you look at that, if they're not having any pleasure, well, not any pleasure, but they're not having a climax
Mm-hmm.
from penetration, which is usually how men expect it to work, that they're probably faking it.
Yeah, that was really interesting to me. I didn't realize it was that high. Well, it says right here that 70% of women strictly, climax from external stimulation. Strictly, that's it. That the whole, penetrative intercourse it is not orgasm producing, and this is really an important topic because it goes so much to our quality of life that both men and women are really aware, because nobody talks about this. So I hope to have a really good discussion with you here today. We'll keep it towards advertiser friendly, and that it will reach the most people, especially at our age when a lot of us are starting over again and we really do want to experience that pleasure that may have eluded us. Tiffany, let me ask you this then. Why do women fake it? What are some of the primary reasons that men are not likely to be aware of, perhaps?
Well, one, women think that it's taking too long based on what they see in movies, and that it's supposed to be this like combustion blow up when there is any kind of penetration. And that's not necessarily how the body works. It can work that way. I teach a full course on that. But 79% of women do not climax from penetration alone. Women get in their head. They think that they're taking too long. They don't know so many women don't even know what pleases them and what an orgasm feels like. So they don't even know how to share that information. And when you're not sharing that information about how your body works and what really satisfies you, your partner doesn't know either. They usually don't know what to do. They want to please you. And it comes down to kind of that worthiness. If you can't have those intimate conversations, then where else are you holding back in your life as well? And also, many people want to please their partner, and the male ego is very fragile, and they think that that's what is expected.
Do you think, and we have lots of men listening, as you know, we have, like a 50% male audience. That's why I think this conversation is doubly as important. And I think women will be shocked by the statistics, quite frankly, that it is this high. Do you think men are surprised when they hear this?
Yes. Men, I believe, will say, oh, no one's ever faked it with me.
Yeah.
I have a couple that I worked with a few years ago that he told me, I don't know, I've never had a woman have to fake, have not gotten to the big O before. I had to pretty much tell him, like, every woman has probably been faking it your entire life, because what you're doing is not going to get any woman to an orgasm.
Yeah. Well, and that's the biggest disconnect, I think, is the expectations that are taken into the bedroom, and then what reality is. And I think that's, you brought up an interesting point, that when men say, "Oh, nobody's ever faked it with me. I always satisfy the ladies," that, right? You just want to say, okay. Chances are nobody's ever had an orgasm
Right.
with you. And I don't mean to laugh or insult anybody. This is really awareness raising if you care about pleasing your partner. And again, this isn't about what men don't know, what men should know, women are probably more responsible for having created this situation than men not being willing to do what we want, but we're so hesitant to talk about it. And I think just mentioned that that's one of the primary reasons we don't communicate, because we don't want to hurt their feelings.
I think most men want to please us.
Mm-hmm.
And again, women think that it's taking too long, or that they're not going to get there. So it's just better to have a show and do some acting than to keep going, or it could be painful. We've talked about painful sex before,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just want it to stop. So to make it stop, that's when you have a climax, right? That, I look at faking it as like giving a dog a treat for chewing up your shoes. It's really you're rewarding poor behavior. I'm not blaming men for that they just don't know, but there are ways to work on it together.
Yeah. And again, that's the biggest problem. And I totally get that, is how do you bring that up, without hurting him? And I want to do a whole separate video, on that with you. You also just brought up a good point that I want to go back to, and we have done videos on this, is painful sex. That is so, for our demographic, especially, that's one of the biggest issues. And most women don't even know what's happening to your body because nobody ever talks about this. And it's interesting, one of the recommendations here was to really share this with your health professional so you can get some advice. And I'm like, going, yeah, right. They're really going to help you. I don't mean everybody, but don't you agree?
Doctors are not going to be able to help you with painful intercourse, mostly because they don't have any education on it. When there isn't education, and when they aren't taught that in medical school, it's very difficult for them to do anything rather than, oh, we'll just, use lube. But what kind of lube? I educate doctors all the time on chemicals that are in products and what to do that can change that, bioidentical hormones. And I walk my clients through that all the time.
Yeah. Well, I'm an example. I've talked about that before too, with you and with other experts. I'm like the poster child of coming from that to going on bioidentical hormones, and changed my whole life. And I don't want to talk a lot about that today, because I really want to stay on topic here. But yeah, that is probably among our demographic one of the main reasons. And again, men may not be aware of this, that you're going through significant pain.
There are usually at our age some hormonal components, but it's more than that. It's physical, biological, and emotional. If you think that sex is going to be painful, then your pelvic floor closes up, your muscles clench, and then it makes it more painful.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, and how hard is that to talk about? I keep saying that, but it is. It really is. And I think it's so important that these statistics, this is a recent study that was published. I mean, it's from cumulative data and interviews and all that. Today, those are the statistics. When you think that this would be something that at this point we can talk about. Let's talk about some clues. When you say that, and I agree that men A lot of them think that they're good in bed or have been pleasing their partner when maybe that isn't the case. What are some clues that, maybe not sure signs, but certainly apply to most situations?
Well, I think when watching movies, we see these vocalizations, and that can be part of it, or your partner may be very silent. I'd say if it's all vocalization, then it's probably a good clue that your partner is faking it, especially that yes, yes, yes kind of. That's usually not how women react. A climax is very similar to a seizure when your body is convulsing. And so you'll notice things, flush of the skin will get hotter, you will feel contractions around the insertion. You can't fake that. And usually that's why women aren't climaxing, is because those pelvic floor muscles are not toned correctly. Either they're too slack or too tight. And so they're not able to spasm. You're going to feel heat coming from her body. And it's not necessarily a vocalization, because if you think about, if you're spasming, you're not going to be, or having a seizure, you're not really going to be very vocal.
Yeah. What's funny is I had an interview with Robert Manny, who I'm sure you know, and it was about what men want. And I always use him for that when people give advice, and this is advice from men. And one of the things was, what men really want is to be, have some noise in the bedroom. And I was thinking the same thing. It's like, well, you're just asking her to fake it. I mean, it's nice, I suppose, but you have to actually feel it. The chances are, really, by these statistics, that the women we're talking with, they know exactly what we're talking about. They can identify with it. I think some of the men will be shocked that it is that high and don't want to believe it. And I think if you really, want to improve that part of your life, especially in the second act, this is something we absolutely have to be aware of. And what's super interesting to me, Tiffany, is that some men, not as many, but as high as 30% of men have admitted to faking it. It's like, how do they even do that?
Well, they can fake that, like jolting of the body. Going from movies, what do you see, what do you hear? That's all acting usually. And so that, like, how their bodies, they are used to knowing how their bodies react, and so they can fake that. That comes down, and it's totally true. It's about, I would say 25% is what I hear working with the people that I work with. But men are taking longer to ejaculate also, and so they just are like, oh, I may be taking too long, she's already gotten there because she's faked it, so I'm just going to fake it too. And then you end up with unsatisfying relationships.
Yeah. I think you've touched on the reasons that why we shouldn't, but we're starting to come to the end. As we conclude this discussion, why shouldn't we do this?
Well, because you're not satisfied when that is happening. You're getting through the movements, and you probably are having some pleasure, but not the pleasure that you deserve, not what you can experience. You're missing out on so much in life. And I really equate it to more than just what you're missing out in the bedroom, because usually if you're holding back there or you're faking it there, then it's something to do with your self-worth, and that you don't think that you're worth the time or worth the effort, or you've just been taught that that's what you accept. As women in the patriarchy, we've been taught, oh, you should just be glad for what you got.
Yep.
Instead of speaking up, and are told to be quiet, that good girls just take what they're given and not go further than that. But it's time to speak up and to ask for what you want in the bedroom and in all parts of life, because you're missing out on immense pleasure that you could be having.
Yeah.
And your partner, I really believe, wants to please you.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I totally believe that too. And it's that disconnect between ego and honesty, or how to do it. I think where the issues lie. And like I said, I want to have a whole other discussion with you on that. I'll say in closing that, it's the resentment that builds if you are in that situation, if you do fake it, is horrible. It certainly led to the end of my marriage. And yeah, I didn't really understand how great it could be until I started talking about this. And I'm hoping that we have that effect on some people today, at least open your eyes to what is actually happening in the bedroom. Tiffany, is there anything else you want to add that maybe I didn't say or didn't ask on this topic?
Yes, actually, most women need a minimum of 20 minutes of foreplay. So if your foreplay is more like 5 minutes, I
Mhm.
would say she's probably not getting there.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to, know that if you faked it for 30 years, things can still change. And in our next segment, we're going to talk about how you can change that. But there are ways that you can move forward and not bruise the ego, not hurt your partner's feelings, and still get what you need in the bedroom.
Oh, well, thank you, Tiffany. I'm going to link to Tiffany's website. You can also get in touch with her directly there. She has all kinds of wonderful products, courses. She has, you have retreats. I mean, you
Yes.
are definitely focused on, women's pleasure and closing that gap. I thank you for that. And I look forward to our next segment on Second Act TV. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. The button is right here. Just click on through to YouTube, and when you see the little bell right next to the subscribe button, hit that too, and we'll notify you every time we launch a new video. See you next time.